In the PropTech Conference held on 18th April 2021 by Zipgrid, one of our star attendees was Ms. Carolyn Trickett. Carolyn is the Senior Director of JLLT Global. She's also the growth lead for Asia Pacific. JLL, as you know, is one of the leading property management organizations in the world and manages millions of square feet of property across the entire world. We asked Carolyn, what are some of the international trends? What's happening in the Asia Pacific? What are some of the emerging trends for community living? And how are properties actually using technology in order to make life and living better for their residents? And Carolyn said,
thanks, Arun. I'm very happy to be here. Thanks for having me. Over the years that I have been working in the property industry, I have seen some changes taking place. As you mentioned, originally most of the focus in the world of PropTech, as we call it, it started with the big office buildings, and there was a focus also on the physical components, so technology relating to the systems that keep the building running. And over the last 4 to 5 years, I have seen a shift in 2 different ways. One shift is that it's not the only focus anymore to be concerned with the physical building. There has been a new trend towards building technology that is going to focus on the occupant of that building. So in some cases, that's the commercial office tenants. But I think this is really where there's been an inflection point where the occupant could also be a residential tenant or residential owner of an apartment. And so there's been a wave over the last few years of new technology being built that helps the occupants of the building, the residential building, and also in turn helps the association. So the people that are representing those occupants, the people that are dedicating their time to ensure the security, convenience, and happiness of those occupants, we're starting to see a lot of new technologies come out to solve that part of the problem. So I thought I would just elaborate a little and explain some of those. But some of them have come up already on this webinar. It was probably what is it now, about 14 years ago that we started seeing the smartphone come into being, and it took a while for people to realize how powerful that was going to be. But I saw it around 2010, we started seeing that smartphones can integrate into every part of our lives. And so once upon a time when we were moving from paperless, the focus was on paperless technology, moving from printed communications to email, we're now seeing with the smartphone that people are looking for integrated communications. So rather than having to send emails, text, phone calls, the way to really automate communications is to have everything encapsulated in one piece of technology. So if you've got a central piece of technology, for example, where the association can then communicate with the occupants, and that's all captured in the application. It's not lost in somebody's email box. It's not lost when somebody loses their phone or forgets their password. It's all captured in the one central database. And in that database can also be saved all the relevant documentation, any information about complaints that have been lodged. And so we start to see this circular process where occupants and associations can communicate very seamlessly together by using those integrated communications. In some areas, we're also seeing new features coming out, voting and surveys, for example. So when you need some quick answers, when you need consolidated information, rather than sending an email to each person, you're getting that information back through the smartphone very quickly, and it's all contained in the one place. As we've seen in the last couple of years as well, especially in 2020 with the global pandemic, the focus in nearly every single country has been about how to make every communication contactless. So it's not enough to be digital. We want to be able to communicate with people around us and with the buildings around us without having to touch anything. And that's another way where the smartphone is an extremely powerful tool to enable people to start interacting with the building itself. Charu was mentioning earlier about all of the written registers that can live their own life in a residential building. The more that we can integrate those into our applications and make it possible to use smartphones to activate those, the more we can have contactless information and contactless interaction with our buildings. Having our visitors registered through a smartphone means that we don't have to write in the book. Having deliveries contactless and having them all synchronized through the delivery zone. So it's a way of really being able to do everything online, not have to touch anything, not have to print anything. So you've really got that true cyber communication happening. Sipti has just talked to us in quite a bit of detail about financial methods. We see that in every country. There's a huge trend for getting those digital payment options integrated into residential management applications. People do not want to have to write checks, go to the bank and make an effort to make those payments. People want it to be right at their fingertips. And by the same token, the association really should not have to be spending time with all of that mundane administration work. Reconciliations themselves can take up hours of somebody's time if you don't know where the money came from and whose account it's meant to be attached to. So there's an incredible wave of new technologies coming out, and technologies where when the payment is made, it is integrated with the financial application. So it's instantly recognized as who it's from and what that payment is for. And I think that really highlights the true benefit of automation for an association is that the purpose of the association is to make the occupants' lives happier and more secure. And if they're spending time on mundane tasks, that makes it harder and harder. So the more we can automate those roles, the more they're going to be able to focus their attention onto the most important part of their role.